So we're team number 4, and as a little context, we're going to talk about the MS-13 and the fear of forced recruitment in Honduras. So we have this case about this minor whose members of the MS-13 tried to approach him when he was around 12. The claimant says that he always refused to join the gang. However, the threats began to climb and to escalate. So the claimant crossed the U.S.-Texas border in order to seek asylum, but he was denied of that. So after living in the U.S. illegally for a few years, he came to Canada in 2022 to make a refugee claim, and we're talking more about this in further slides.
So the first question we'll be answering is, what are the central issues in this claim for refugee protection? So we found 3 central issues with this claim for refugee protection. The first one is that the claimant is underage. So we find this as one of the central issues because if the person that is seeking refugee protection is considered underage and a minor, they're also considered an unaccompanied minor, which makes it hard for them to come and have an individual case. That's one issue that we found. The second one is that there's maybe not enough information. So sometimes when in a refugee protection case, one of the main issues is that the government needs to be able to identify the person in question. And based off of the case and what we understood, maybe there was not enough information provided by this individual, this minor, for the government to identify themselves, which is why for the government to identify the kid, which is why they were also rejected, and that's also seen as an issue when it comes to seeking refugee protection. The third one, which we find to be the most important one, as one of the most central issues in this claim for refugee protection, is that there was no life-threatening danger. So even though the MS-13 gang is known for being manipulative, ruthless, and one of the deadliest gangs in the world, manipulation and recruitment is not seen as a threat to one's life. Even though asylum has been granted in gang-related cases, but to be able to qualify, one has to prove that the gang or domestic violence amounts to persecution. And in this case, one of the central issues is that the claimant states that there is a general issue going on of being forcefully recruited to the gang, and no life-threatening issue was made prominent. So these are the 3 central issues in the claim for the refugee protection.
It is a complicated situation that the person in question is going through. It is a fact that the MS-13 gang is extremely dangerous and intimidating. A person, in this case a child, should not have to go through these type of situations. However, they are reality. A child who should feel safe even in his own country. However, unfortunately, this is not the case. And in order to offer him that security in another country, it is necessary to identify and have evidence of the facts. The requested evidence must be related mainly to the veracity of the facts. Initially, documents providing the identity and nationality of the person must be presented. After that, emphasis must be placed on the reason for the asylum request, demonstrating with evidence the facts and antecedents that occurred, justifying the reasons for the persecution that is being carried out by the gang. It is also important to know the reason why the refugee request in the USA was denied.
The Canada Border Service Agency, CBSA, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, are those who will have the tools and the power to determine if an individual is eligible to be referred to the Immigration and Refugee Board for a hearing. Factors determining an individual's eligibility to make a refugee claim include whether the claimant has committed a serious crime, made a previous claim in Canada, or received protection in another country.
The claimant's story of being targeted by MS-13 at a young age and repeatedly approached for recruitment is consistent with what is known about gang activity in Honduras. This supports his claim of persecution. Additionally, the claimant's residence is in a neighborhood in El Progreso, Honduras, and it indicates a genuine threat if he returns because it is a neighborhood controlled by MS-13. Although the claimant's unsuccessful asylum claim and undocumented status in the US are not directly related to his experience with MS-13, they demonstrate a well-founded fear of persecution and a need for protection. Returning to Honduras could result in the same risk or potentially greater danger due to his perceived connection to the US. Overall, the claimant's story is credible and should be considered for refugee status.
So fact number 4 is that the claimant says the incidents of attempted recruitment continued to escalate, and MS-13 had approached him on numerous occasions, including harassing, threatening, and often hurting him. We know that this is true because MS-13 is one of the deadliest gangs in the world with economic, political, and territorial power. MS-13 is notorious for their violence and bloodshed, in which the claimant's fear of the gang's fatal revenge regarding his rejection of the gang is real and prominent. The claimant lacks the resources to defend himself against MS-13, and as noted, MS-13 is known for intimidation and extortion, theft, assault, swarming, drug trafficking, stabbings, shootings, and murder, all of which the claimant will be subject subjected to if forced to return back to Honduras. And for our final fact, the claimant walked from Honduras to the U.S.-Texas border as stated in this case study. This information is supported by thousands of migrants who are also fleeing from Honduras to the U.S.-Texas border by foot. Due to the war on drugs and territorial takeover by gangs like MS-13, inhabitants of these communities are forced to flee to their homes for their safety. And we know this by the geographical location of the United States and Central America, which make for a practical route for migrants with little to no resources. Without fleeing the U.S., the claimant would most likely be forced to join MS-13 or a rival gang for safety and protection.